Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. It's Friday, and we are lucky. Matt Continetti is in the house. Matt has more jobs than I do. He is the head of domestic policy studies at the American Enterprise Institute. He is the Washington columnist for the Commentary magazine. He is a contributor to the Free Press. I think he writes for the Free Beacon as well. And he's just generally well known around town. Matt, are you now working for CBS? Has anyone told you you're now part of the Tiffany network?
I have not been so informed, Hugh. I'm not. I only know what I read in the papers.
Okay, I'm just saying you might actually be working for the legacy of Walter Cronkite now.
I haven't
Matt,
seen that
let's
news.
begin.
I haven't seen that breaking news yet.
Okay, I've seen the article. It's all gossip. It's all gossip. I hope it's true. I hope Barry Weiss and the Free Press have been acquired by CBS, and that she will have a senior editorial position at CBS, and they leave it alone then. First question, Matt. Do you believe the president had the authority to order the strike on the Venezuelan drug boat, killing 11 and sinking their cargo of fentanyl and cocaine?
Well, the president has, as you know, Hugh, Article 2 authority to protect the United States against threats. And I think under Article 2, he had the authority to conduct this operation. I think the strike is fascinating. We need to look at it along two dimensions. You know, the first is this ongoing military buildup that the U.S. is engaged in outside Venezuela. We have a large flotilla there parked off of Venezuela. I think we recently ordered some air assets to the region as well. And all of it, we've also increased the bounty on Nicolas Maduro, the dictator of Venezuela, whom Secretary of State Rubio has said is an illegitimate leader and has got to go. And so this kind of operation against the Tren de Aragua terrorists and traffickers is related, I think, to this increased pressure on Venezuela. And then the other side of it is, of course, the ongoing litigation over the president's ability to deport the gang members speedily and with as little review as possible. That's tied up in the courts, and the Supreme Court is eventually going to rule on it as well. And so suggesting that we are at war with this traffickers, this gang, these terrible people, by actually taking some out, may help the president's position not only with deterring Maduro, but also telling the courts that yes, we are at war with this narco-terrorist organization.
Interesting point. I hadn't thought about that. I spent about 45 minutes last night, Matt, with an old colleague from the Reagan administration, Ricardo, I call him. And Ricardo and I were going round and round. Of course, we know George H.W. Bush ordered the invasion of Panama. The invasion of Panama, in which 23 Americans were killed, 3 civilians in addition to the military, about 500 plus Panamanians killed. We got Noriega, brought him back to the United States after a couple of weeks. Big deal. No authorization for the use of military force. The only difference is Panama had declared war on the United States. Noriega was stupider than Maduro, maybe. But Maduro's almost there. Do you think that the Bush precedent from 1989 serves as a blanket for President Trump in 2025?
Well, I think that presidents have pretty extraordinary authority in the realm of foreign affairs and their ability to act against threats to the United States. It's not just Panama. Of course, we had a very controversial decision by Barack Obama to get involved in the operation to topple Muammar Gaddafi in Libya in 2011. I don't remember an AUMF passed for that.
Yep.
So the president has these authorities under the Constitution. What I think is important, Hugh, is I would like to see more effort by the administration talking about what's going on, and because I think most Americans would agree with the president's methods and his objectives here. I think most Americans understand that the drug problem in this country has torn us apart. It's led to so many different fatalities, and that it's connected to the problem of illegal immigration and crime, right? All Trump's political strengths, politically salient issues. And so just a little bit more messaging saying this is what we're doing, this is how Maduro's connected, and it's how we're making America safer, I think would go a long way in reassuring people that the president has this authority and he's on the right path, I think, policy-wise.
You know, I spent about an hour on the show on the day of the strike taking calls, and it was 20-0 or 22-0 in support of the strike. Now, that's self-selecting callers to a talk show. However, I heard the phrase again and again and again. That's what I voted for. 30 seconds, Matt. What's that mean? That's what I voted for.
A president who acts decisively to protect the United States and American citizens. That's what they voted for.
That's what I think. I'm going to talk with Matt during the break about Gaza and come back on the other side and talk about China, so do not miss anything. I'll be right back with Matt Continetti. Stay tuned. I am back with Matt Continetti of the Free Press and Commentary Magazine. Matt, it's already Shabbat in Israel, so I don't expect to get much from the Times of Israel over the weekend. But right before, late last night and then into early morning hours today, it became clear that the IDF is much deeper into Gaza City offensive than I expected or knew, and Israeli media sources hadn't told us about it until the high-rise came down today. Do you think that they are doing the Winston Churchill thing, that truth is so important in wartime it must be protected by a bodyguard of lies?
I think that's what we're seeing. I mean, this is not just Winston Churchill, it's also Israel, which is known for daring raids and secret operations and intelligence coups. And what's, unusual, in fact, about the Gaza war is that the sort of amazing intelligence that allowed Israel to take out a Hamas member visiting an Iranian president's inauguration, or to take out Hassan Nasrallah in a bunker underground, or to ferry the Iranian nuclear archive out of Iran in secret, or to build drone factories inside Iran when eventually the war between Iran and Israel leading to Operation Midnight Hammer broke out earlier this summer. We haven't seen that in Gaza up until right about now. And I also have been impressed by the secrecy and the surprise that the IDF have utilized in these opening stages. They were spending a lot of time, Hugh, telling us that they wouldn't begin entering Gaza City for weeks, if not months. And now we see that they have control, they say, of over 40% of the city so far. So this is a good sign, I think, that the Israelis are acting decisively with the support of the United States to lay the groundwork for an end to this war in the coming months.
The takedown of that high-rise is extraordinary because it looked like a controlled demolition of the sort we saw with the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas. Have you seen that video?
Yeah, I caught a snippet of it. We haven't seen much of this, though we know the IDF does it. These buildings, as Prime Minister Netanyahu explained to Bill Hemmer of Fox earlier this summer, they are so booby-trapped, they are so compromised that you can't leave them standing, or else it will be a threat to everyone, not just the Israeli soldiers, but to the Palestinians living there. The only way to handle it and to make the situation safer is to actually do the controlled demolition and blow up the building, which, by the way, also affects the tunnels that we know are underneath Gaza, like some kind of devilish metro. So yeah, it's an incredible feat.
Haviv Redigur told me yesterday it is now a war of demolition, and he is right. I'll be right back with Matt Continetti. Stay tuned. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. If you know anything about the title charts of American politics, you know that the Republicans are likely to lose the House in 2026. Sometimes it doesn't happen. George W. Bush kept it in 2002, but they're likely to. So, Matt Continetti, I'm keeping a list of the articles of impeachment that the Democrats will bring if and when they get back into power. And I think article number 1 is going to be failure to enforce the TikTok ban, and article number 2 is going to be the Venezuelan boat strike. What do you think about both of those as Democratic props?
I'm not sure that they would rank high on the Democrats' list, to be honest to you. I think there are good constitutional arguments to be made about the Trump policies on either of those items. I think the Democrats, they're just going to reach for whatever they have nearby. And I think it's going to start actually with immigration. And they're going to say failure to execute the laws, or they're going to talk about the universities. The fascinating about the Democrats is they don't care about the Constitution. They care about how Trump policy has affected their prized possessions, their constituency groups. And so I think any bill of indictment against Trump for to impeach him, it's going to be very broad, and it's just going to be about how Trump has hurt the Democratic Party and its clients.
Oh, good keystone or Rosetta Stone for understanding how the Democrats operate. I do want to remind the audience that when Richard Nixon was impeached in 1974, Dems threw in an article about Vietnam for good measure, the incursion into Cambodia. That's why I'm keeping the Venezuelan vote on my bingo card for impeachment articles. Now, Matt, two articles today, two of the most prestigious media platforms in the world. Wall Street Journal, how China's new naval and air sites would aid an attack on Taiwan. The Times of London, target Taiwan, how China's invasion could unfold. What do you, and they both say 2027. What does Matt Continetti think?
I think that's what the experts say, 2027. You know, there's an election scheduled in Taiwan, I think in 28. And I've always been of the view that Xi Jinping will wait to see what happens in that election, and that if the pro-China party wins the Taiwanese election, he may delay any invasion because he would see it as a way of basically getting what he wants through peaceful political diplomatic means. On the other hand, if the pro-independence party were to win that election, then I think you would see some type of military action. So 27, 28, I do think that's the window where we should be most concerned that China would act.
Now, Admiral Paparo, who is the head of Pacific Command, has said his job is to turn the Taiwan Strait into a hellscape for the People's Liberation Army and Navy. And I think we've got stuff that we don't know about at DARPA and drones that we don't know about and all sorts of stuff we don't know about to do that. But it would require someone to pull the trigger. Do you think Donald Trump would pull the trigger on China coming across the Taiwan Strait?
Well, I think he would, Hugh, to be honest. The messages coming from the White House right now about China are not the same messages as we saw even a few months ago, where I think President Trump was trying to strike a very kind of conciliatory tone, trying to get that big trade deal with China that he's wanted for so long. In the past week, we have these very kind of snarky, sarcastic messages to Xi Jinping, talking about conspiring against the United States. He had one today attacking the Indian Prime Minister Modi for being so friendly to Xi and to Putin during the recent World War II commemorations in Beijing, where he said, you know, these are dark forces at work. I'm paraphrasing. So I think Trump has taken a pretty negative stance toward Xi Jinping in recent weeks. And let's not forget, Trump is not an isolationist. You know, he doesn't want wars, and he wants to end wars when they break out. But he is not averse to military force, as we saw in Iran and as we just saw this week off the coast of Venezuela.
Now, the both articles suggest that because of the unpredictability of President Trump, China might act preemptively against carriers in the region, which of course means we have to respond. Do you ever lie awake thinking about that? Because that would be bad. That would be World War III.
It would be. You know, I guess I don't rate that probability as very high based on China's approach in the past. It seems to me that the Chinese Communist Party has been extremely deliberate in its moves. It prefers a very quiet, slow stranglehold over Taiwan rather than these kind of spectacular attacks. But you can't rule it out. And of course, if something were to happen, like you suggest, I don't think the attack would be limited to America. I think that they would also be attacking Japan, possibly Korea. And so, yeah, you would have a regional conflict breakout. Remember, we already have wars in Europe with Ukraine. We have this war in the Middle East, this long-running war between Israel and Iran, where the most active front right now is Gaza. To add a third theater, the Indo-Pacific, Taiwan Strait, we would be in World War III. And historians would look back and say, you know, World War III probably began in 2014 with Vladimir Putin's annexation of the Crimean Peninsula.
I can't top that because I agree with it. Matt Continetti, thank you as always. Follow Matt at Continetti on X. It's pretty easy to follow him there and everything that he writes at the Free Press and Commentary. Listen to the Commentary podcast as well.